We're in New Zealand today. Well, we start off in Polynesia. It's a story about how the people from Polynesia first arrived in a new land, which of course we call New Zealand. It was many, many, many years ago, something like 400 to 500 years ago. And some people decided to leave their homeland and make a voyage across the ocean, knowing that there was an uninhabited land there. And the great canoes were all ready to leave. And the priest, Nagatoro, was there to bless the boat and bless the voyage, asked for fair winds and a safe landing. And as Nagatoro went from each boat to the next boat, he suddenly found that actually they had begun to sail away from his homeland. And Nagatoro smiled, for actually he quite liked the idea of going on a great adventure across the ocean. And he waved to his sister Kiwi as she stood on the beach. And there was a certain sorrow passed between them. His brother and sister were parted. And then people arrived at the new land. For, and perhaps it was because of Nagatoro's blessing, all 6 canoes arrived safely at the new country. And people made themselves busy and claimed land for themselves and began to make plans for where they would fish and how they would build a new home. And Nagatoro saw a mountain rising up, and at the top of the mountain it was white. And Nagatoro looked at the mountain and decided to climb. And he climbed and he climbed and he climbed. And he found the white stuff at the top of the mountain wasn't the sand that he knew from the land of his birth. It was strange. It was very beautiful. But when he picked it up with his hands, it was so cold it seemed to burn his skin. It was strange. And he stood on the top of the mountain in the white stuff, that of course we call snow, and looked around and saw how beautiful, how lovely and how welcoming the new nation was. And then he was a bit confused, but he realised this white stuff, it came from the sky, as if it was a gift from the sky god and the great sky father. And white flakes began to fall down around him, and his feet became cold, and he became cold, and the wind blew and blew the white flakes into his face and all over him. And after a time, Nagatoro found that he could no longer move, he could no longer walk, and he lay down in the strange white stuff. And it was so cold, the cold seemed to get right inside him, as if it was attacking his very bones. And as Nagatoro lay down, he could feel his life draining away. He could feel the warmth leaving his body. And it was then that he sent his spirit out to his sister Kuwei and asked her for help. And at home, on their own island, Kuwei heard her dying brother's pleas. And she took a burning brand from the fire, and by her magic, she walked along the seabed all the way to the new land. And by her magic, she kept the flame of the burning brand glowing and burning, even under the sea. And she stepped out through the new land. But instead of walking over the surface of the earth, she walked underneath. She walked through the earth in the same way as she had walked through the sea, still holding the burning brand, lit by her love and her concern for her brother. So she forced her way, tunneling her way, I suppose, through the soil, underneath the mountain, and climbed up inside the mountain. And then when she reached the top, she took the burning brand to her brother as he lay there, almost unconscious by now in the snow. But the burning brand kept both the brother and the sister warm, alive and vibrant, and together they climbed down the mountain. And together they made a new home for themselves. If ever you go to this strange island that the people from Polynesia claim from their own, you will find where Kiwi walked through the soil a whole line of hot springs. And if ever you climb the mountain that Nagatoro climbed, you will find it is now a volcano. And the burning brand that Kue took with her still lights a fire which comes up from the inside of the mountain. Years ago, I was up in Orkney and I first learned the story of Assi Patel and the store worm, which is a lovely story. It's another one I tell. I do have a video of that. That on the campsite, there was a chap there from New Zealand, and we were talking about storytelling, and he said that, of course, the Maori haven't been in New Zealand for that long, and they're not really sure exactly where they came from. Somewhere on the Pacific Rim, and so they're trying to trace their history, and some of the evidence that they have for where they came from is actually stories, because stories are passed down by word of mouth from one generation to the next. And actually, for people who don't read and write, tend to have much better memories, and so stories don't kind of change quite so much. And stories like that are kind of used as evidence of exactly how the Maori came to New Zealand. But another story that they have is of Father Sky above and Mother Earth below, and then between those two grows a tree, and the branches of the tree lift up Father Sky. And this was kind of how the world was created, that it was created by the growing of a tree. I rather like that. It is quite a common thing, actually. There's quite a lot of stories do seem to have a lot of stories involve a great flood, like the story of the ibis and spring returning. The story of a great flood appears all in many countries, and so there does seem to be some sort of historical ancestral memory of this. But there do seem to be stories that do actually seem to have memory of, it do seem to go right back to the beginnings of agriculture. Agriculture is often described as a gift that is given to humanity, as if we still have, from such a vast time ago, we still have a memory. We still seem to have some sort of connection with hunter-gatherers. That's quite an odd one, isn't it? And until, of course, we are given this great gift of how to grow grain and how to tame animals and what have you. So there's lots of reasons for telling stories, and one of them is history and connecting with our sisters. But my favourite reason for telling stories is just that they're fun and that they take us out of our ordinary day to day life. And I love the idea of a sister just crossing the ocean just to rescue her brother. And that is just such an incredibly beautiful image. And I love the idea of fire overcoming snow. So there you are. Lovely. So may there always be a spark of fire in your life. Perhaps the fire of love for people you care about. And I hope to see you again soon. Ta-ta for now.